Welcome back, ink drinkers, to episode 2 of Project Hail Mary. This time around, we'll be diving into chapters 9 through 19. Last time, we left Rylan uh, on the Hail Mary, and he had just received his new Blip B that had a new model in it, and the alien is asking for contact.
He sends this model and it's like of his ship and the Hail Mary with a connector in the middle. And Ryland is like, oh my God, he wants to meet. And that's like super exciting, but also terrifying.
Yeah.
I feel like most like extraterrestrial movies, especially in the US, show a lot of aliens as either wanting to conquer or eat us. And
Yeah.
so I don't know, especially being the only one on the ship, if I would be as adventurous
Yeah.
as Ryland seems to be, at least where we left off last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And at least he's like contemplating it, right? Like he's questioning, like, is this a good idea to meet with this alien? Um, but he's also thinking, I think, a lot on the science side, like, what happens if his environment and my environment don't equate and then we all die and then I can't save humanity?
Well, he does think about it like, should I do this? But he stays true. Like, I feel like the author stays true to who a scientist is, and their curiosity just gets
Yeah.
the best of them. And so he does decide that it's a good idea,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets in. He's like, wait a second. He has to know what my ship is
Mm-hmm.
made out of so that he can figure out how to attach. And I think this is crazy, but he gets in his EVA suit and goes out.
Yep.
He's like, because he wants the alien to see him like do what he's doing
Yeah.
so he knows, and basically takes a hammer and chisel and knocks a piece of his
Yep.
hull off and throws it at the machine, or not at the machine, at the ship. And the little robot like catches
Arm
it.
thing.
He catches it and the robot waves. Like, I thought that was a funny little touch. Like, it's obvious that they're trying to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really cute. Um, but also, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he like fumble the first piece that he got off the ship and it like floated into space or something like that?
I can't remember.
I guess I feel like he messed up with something and had to like try again or whatever. And I'm just like, how much of this ship is going to be missing? And like, is that going to be I mean, he is on a
Mm-hmm.
suicide mission, so I guess he would know, but
Would he know?
crazy.
He doesn't really know that
That's true.
much. He has a lot of gaps in his memory.
This is very, very true.
And then we get a flashback of the spin drives,
Mm-hmm.
and like we get a little more insight into the ship. So I like the way that's worked in. Like,
Mm.
he's talking about the like makeup composition, that's the word I was
Yes.
looking for, composition of his ship. And then we get a flashback of the Russian scientist
Yeah.
and him explaining the spin drives, which I love. His name is Dmitri, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love Dmitri. Like, his humor is
Yeah.
hilarious, and he just seems like a joyous, just like boisterous man.
He reminds me very much of like a little kid. Like he grew up and he
Mm-hmm.
is still a little kid and he gets to experiment with things. Like, so he's just like a mad scientist in a lab, but like I imagine him, I mean, I know he's an adult, but I kind of imagine him with like that kid joviality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm gonna play with explosive things and really bad shit could happen, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. He's just like a delight, and I think you need that in this, but like,
Yeah.
you need that comic relief.
Yeah. And so Rylan gives the smallest bit of astrophage to Dimitri, and they see an experiment done that ends up melting, I forget, iron, some sort of
It's a
metal.
heavy metal, and it melts like a metric ton of it
Yeah.
in
And like,
a split second.
yes, very, very quickly. And he's basically like, and so that's how we'll use the astrophage as fuel to create thrust for the Hail Mary. And I
And
was
then,
like, wow.
and he also explains that, because Strat asks a question about like a big one, and he's like,
Mm,
oh no, we would not scale this up. We would make 1,000 of them.
Mhm.
And so I think that's also interesting, is that they're also thinking through the mechanics and
Mhm.
how like combustible astrophage is.
Mhm.
And so having a bunch of little ones to all push makes it a lot safer,
Yeah.
especially if something goes wrong, right? Like, so
Mhm.
if they just had one big engine
Yeah.
and it broke down, and then it's like you're just dead in the air.
Yeah.
But like if one or two or even 100 inside that 1,000 break down, you can still move.
Yeah. I did like that they kind of explained that aspect of it, like not just the explosive part of it, but like, well, in this case, like it's also a backup scenario so that if
Mhm.
multiple were to not work for some reason, something malfunctioned, something happened to the ship, like you would still have the ability to go,
Mhm.
which is awesome.
I like how deep and well thought through everything is in the science.
Mhm.
What like this really is feels very science heavy,
Mhm.
but in an accessible way. And I know I said that last time, but like sometimes you read science fiction and it's just kind of like, oh, there's science behind it. But
Yeah.
this, you can tell that the research was done and
Mhm.
people were consulted.
Yeah. So we're seeing in the next bit that um, our alien enemy,
Friends, that
friends,
there's a that's a big ship. It's like 3 times as big as
yes,
the Hail Mary. So whew,
um, have constructed a cylindrical tube, and it's coming towards the Hail Mary, and
straight to the airlock.
yeah, and Ryland's like, but they don't know like the locking mechanism for my airlock, like what's happening, how are they going to get this
Hmm.
attached, and then he just they it glues it to the ship.
Well, and he's like, that's when he really gets into like the compatibility
Mhm.
factor. He's like, he doesn't know what my
Mm-mm.
atmosphere is made of. I don't know what his atmosphere is made of. Obviously, it's really hot. He knows that from the canisters that
Yep.
have been um, given to him, and he knows they have ammonia
Mhm.
because of the same thing. And so he's like, I don't I don't really know what's going to happen, because that could really harm my ship. It could really harm me. Like, how is
Mhm.
this going to go? And you can just like glue it on? Like, is
Yeah.
that going to hold?
Yeah. And then he hears this like thwomp sound and
Mhm.
realizes that these aliens were even smart enough to figure out how to pressurize it, like
Mhm.
to it and everything. So it's like, okay, not only were they intelligent enough to have communication through models back and forth, but they're advanced enough in engineering and some science here to be
Mhm.
able to figure out just from the little bits and pieces they've gotten so far to be able to make this big of a connection.
Mhm.
Um, and so he puts on his EVA suit because he's got, he's thinking
Why
it all
wouldn't
through.
you?
Like earlier, when he opened up that cylinder and he was hit with the ammonia, he's like, I don't know what environment I'm going into. So he
Mhm.
goes into his EVA suit and gets into the tunnel, and finds that there's like a wall separating,
Mhm.
and he can feel without even touching, he can feel the heat like
Mhm.
emanating,
Mhm.
yeah, like through it, like from
Mhm.
the other side. So clearly he knew they liked higher temperatures, but being able to feel that, like he's getting more understanding of
Mhm.
just how hot this other species likes it to be or needs it to be.
And this wall is very interesting because it's
Hmm.
made up of hexagons, and it's made
Yes.
up of like various different like materials, or at least it
Colors and
seems,
textures.
and various levels of opaque or
Hmm.
transparency. And so he's like confused,
Hmm.
and he one catches his eye. There's a
Yeah.
clear one almost towards the bottom,
Yeah.
and he can finally kind of like look through it,
Hmm.
and he can't really see much.
Mm-mm.
He's like, it's kind of dark. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, he doesn't know what to do with it. Like, now what?
Yeah. Well, and I love it because, we know he's like science minded and everything. So he like runs back and gets a couple of things and realizes that every single one of these hexes is made out of the xenonite,
Mhm.
but there's like a slight discrepancy to each one of them.
Mhm.
And so when he finally finds that clear one, that glass-like one, and he's like, okay, don't really know what to do. Maybe I'll go get some more tools. And he like kind of turns, and then something catches his eye.
Mhm.
Like sees something, and so he looks back, and I absolutely love this part of the book for like the slow realization and the slow description that we get of
Mhm.
what he's seeing. So that he just describes it as like a rock hitting the other side of the hex, and it stays there. It's roughly triangular, kind of dark brown, and has rough, jagged edges. The rock is bending at articulated joints, and there are two similar rocks that do the same thing. And then there's a longer rock attached to them that's not a rock. It's a claw. It's a claw with three fingers. So like he's realizing like, oh, wait a second. That's 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 an alien. I've made first contact. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, he knew he had made first contact, but now he's like actually seeing
Yeah.
what he's
Mhm.
been communicating with.
And I think he's so shocked about the material. I feel like, again, a lot of science fiction media depicts aliens as
Yeah.
fleshy in some
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
They might not look like us, maybe, blue
Yeah.
or a little green, but they're always made of some type of what we would perceive as organic
Yeah.
material. And that's not what this alien
Mm-mm.
seems to be made out of.
Yeah. Well, they're describing like so far we're
Hmm.
describing, like a claw
Like
right? He said
three
three, yeah.
pronged,
Three
yeah.
pronged like claw thing.
Hmm.
Rough hewn. And then we also think of like in most media, whether it's books or movies,
Hmm.
all of the aliens that I can think of, like the first alien type outside of Alien from Alien, because the horror movie
Hmm.
lover of my husband, outside of those, um, the first one that comes into mind is like your normal green-headed alien with the big eyes and the mouth.
Hmm.
And I mean, yeah, they kind of have like claw-y, like three or four fingers. They don't have a full, five
Hmm.
hand or five-fingered hand or whatever. But like they're still very much like humanoid looking.
Well, even, and I think of like Men in Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different types of aliens in that, but all of them seem to be fleshy in some
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool that we're getting something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's seeing just through this one hexagon,
Hmm.
and this alien uses another model again,
Hmm.
which is great. I love this communication that they have of a space figure. And Ryland figures out, oh, wait, you've only ever seen me in my EVA suit. That's me.
Hmm.
And he's got the Hail Mary, and he has Ryland go all the way back to the Hail Mary.
Hmm.
And Ryland's like, okay, yeah, got you.
Hmm.
And he does it back. He just
He
does
goes,
as best he can.
yeah,
And this is where, because of what he is seeing, Ryland just decides to name him Rocky
yes,
because he's a rock-like thing. Now, mind you, he's seeing like this much of him, of this thing.
yeah. He's only seen an arm or maybe two arms because he was like making it
Yeah,
go back, but he hasn't seen like the full body, but he sees that he's made out of rock-like material, so he
mm-hmm.
names him Rocky, which also I feel like Ryland's personality
Yeah,
with how he names things and
mm-hmm.
like his humor, like I expect nothing less.
Yeah,
But that so he goes back into his ship and there's lots of like clanking and stuff
yeah.
he hears on the other side and he's bored. He gets impatient and um I forget how he knows to go back out there
He is
again.
tapping.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
There's like tapping again.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes into the tunnel and now the whole wall
Yes.
is clear.
Yeah. And he gets to see Rocky in full form for the first time.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I could see this being like a moment of just being a little terrified. And he describes Rocky for us. He says he's a spider, a big assed spider. Rocky is smaller than a human. He's about the size of a Labrador. He
Mhm.
has 5 legs radiating out from a central carapace-looking thing. The carapace, which is roughly a pentagon, is 18 inches across and half as thick. He doesn't see eyes or face anywhere.
And he, in order to do this, because the tunnel is super dark, he
Mhm.
takes lamps
Yes. Yes.
from the, and I think he did that initially before when there was the wall,
Yes, he did.
the like multi material wall, because I remember too making a note of like once Rocky like takes down the wall, he like takes the lamps,
Mhm.
and uh Ryland says those are going to be the most studied lamps ever. So
Yes.
he brings more lamps in so that he can see him, and he's
Mhm.
like obviously freaked out because of him being a large rock spider.
Yep.
But I think it's one interesting that Ryland assumes sight even
Uh-huh.
though he doesn't see eyes.
Mhm.
And like we're dealing with an alien race, so
Yeah.
it's like you don't know what environment, like you've pointed out to yourself many
Yeah.
times, you don't know what environment they live in. It's obviously very different. He's
Mhm.
obviously made up of different material, but you're still like assuming they're like you,
Mhm.
which is really, I don't know. I just think it's really interesting. And I think it's something everybody would fall
Yeah.
into because that's just like the way we live. Like we
Yeah.
don't expect that.
Yeah. Well, and clearly there's some sort of sight of something because he's able to create and make
Mhm.
and build and do all these
He knew about the
extraordinary
wave.
things. Yeah, he could see the wave. He's done, his mimic of the thumbs up. Like he's
Mhm.
been able to do all of these different things. So now he's getting, Ryland's getting eyes on him and he's like, okay, I don't see like any type of face anywhere, but he's here and we've been communicating.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So at this point, if you are not listening to the audiobook, you
Yes.
need to be.
Yes.
Because I tandem read, so I listen and
Mhm.
like I usually have the physical copy in front of me. And the physical copy, when they reveal
Yeah.
Rocky's speech, doesn't
Mhm.
do it justice.
No.
You see musical notes,
Mhm.
but in the audiobook they
Mhm.
play musical chords, and
Mhm.
it is the coolest
Yeah.
thing I think I've ever heard in an
Yeah.
audiobook.
Yeah. It is one of the things that definitely made this book for me, especially as an audio, because it's not like across the page, especially if you have any sort of background in music, you're seeing, the single notes and whatnot. But then when you hear it, I mean, you can hear that there are more than just a single entity happening.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like Rylan equates it kind of to like whale song, where it's got
Mhm.
all of that like entwining sound, and that's exactly what the audiobook does, and it's
Mhm.
amazing. Now, as Rylan gets further in a little bit, he does do a good job. They do a good job if you're not listening to the audio of describing like he's got like 5 sounds here and 3
Yeah.
sounds here for
Mhm.
this. But yeah, it is phenomenal in the audiobook.
It really is. So then Rocky starts trying to communicate again, and
Mhm.
in this new wall, he's created a tiny airlock
Yes.
so that they can pass things back and forth in between.
Mhm.
And so he puts something into the airlock, and Rylan gets it out, and he opens it up, and it's like two bracelet looking things,
Mhm.
strings of 8. And he's like, circles of 8. And he's
Mhm.
like, what the is
Yeah,
this? What
yeah.
is this? And it takes him a minute. He realizes it's 2 oxygen
Mhm.
molecules. So that the little beads are atoms,
Mhm.
um, or are protons.
Protons? Mhm.
And so he's like, oh, so he gets that my atmosphere is O2.
Yeah, because they were inside the Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a subsequent one
Mhm.
that represents Rocky's
Mhm.
atmosphere, and his are like so many. There's like
Mhm.
29
Yeah,
of
28 or 29, yeah.
them, and Rylan realizes it's ammonia, and
Yes.
his is like his atmosphere is 29 times more
Mhm.
pressurized
Yep.
than his, and he's like, holy shit, like
Yeah.
this guy lives under these people live under
Mhm.
immense
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I think, unlocks a little bit like, oh, that's why you're made of this
Yeah,
material.
this like
Like, you have
rocks.
to
Yeah.
withstand, your body has to be able to withstand that type of
Mhm.
pressure. But
Yeah.
it was such a genius, like, you can tell these aliens, assuming maybe it's the same guy he's talking to every time, maybe it's
Mhm.
different, like, they're obviously very intelligent to
Yeah.
figure out a way, because obviously you don't have a common language yet,
Mhm.
and to like figure out some of the basic things to
Mhm.
communicate to each other. It's just so cool.
Yeah. Um, and the next part, because they're like still trying to communicate and everything, Ryland is like dead tired. He hasn't slept in forever.
Would you?
No, no, because hello, alien.
Mhm.
Um, and so he's like, okay, I need to somehow communicate to him that like I need to sleep, but I'm not abandoning him. Like I'll come back. So he goes into the lab and gets a clock,
Mhm.
and like starts like drawing with his marker on the clock and like circling, and is trying to get him to like see the clock itself, and he gets closer and closer, and Rocky keeps on like edging and edging and edging until he's like
Basically pressed up against
against
the
it.
glass.
And you can see like a realization with Rocky, that he's understanding like what Ryland's showing him, because Ryland's done it a couple of times. He's shown him like the one
One
finger
finger.
and said like
Mhm.
wait. So then Rocky gets all excited and he does it, and he runs back into his ship,
Mhm.
comes back, and he's got a completely different looking thing. But then Ryland realizes, oh wait, I brought you a clock, you brought me a clock.
And it's like a cylinder
Mhm.
where the little characters are raised and it
Mhm.
like ticks
Yes.
over. And so it's really interesting, like just the comparison of the
Mhm.
two clocks. And so they're trying to communicate like what each means.
Yes.
And also, it's really cool to think about how different, like, planets potentially
Mhm.
will track time differently, like how
Yeah.
time is different. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about how Ryland only experience, time dilation stuff. We'll get to that later, but um, just like all of our time is based on the sun and
Mhm.
how we rotate around the sun and what our day is like,
Mhm.
and how that might be different for another planet on another star. Like,
Mhm.
how does that work?
Yeah. And then the teacher and me really loved this aspect of it too, because Ryland's figuring out the symbols ish to like kind of correlate. He's not understanding exactly what the symbols represent yet, but like
Mhm.
he's making observations of like, okay, this one goes however long, like 2 point something Earth seconds, and then it flips to the next and whatnot. But he's realizing as he's doing his calculations that every sixth time it starts over again. So he's realizing that their numbers are a base six,
Mhm.
which makes sense because Rocky's hands have 3 and 3.
Mhm.
So they've got a base six. Like, but our kids in school, we have base 10. We've got
Mhm.
5 on each hand, so we work on base 10. Like, I
Mhm.
can't tell you as a kindergarten teacher how much, we rely when we're starting with early mathematics, our hands as one of our first tools, and then slowly, teaching
Mhm.
other strategies and stuff. But I loved that correlation, that realization that he made. He's like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
that makes sense. Like, we use what's in front of us. We're base 10 just because it's easy. They're base
Right.
6 just because it's easy. So of course their cycle and their time cycles in the same way. So I
Mhm.
really, really, really loved that part of this scene.
So then, like, like, the clock floats away from the wall a little bit, and
Mhm.
he communicates, like, I have to go sleep.
Yeah.
But Rocky's like, wait, wait, like, please press
Mhm.
it back up. So he, like, adheres this clock to the wall, and then he goes and sleeps for 2 hours, only 2 hours. He's like,
Mhm.
I will be back in 2 hours. Um, and he's prompt on that. Like, he
Yeah.
sets like a timer and gets up, and he's like, that was a mistake because now all I want to do is go back to
Yeah.
sleep
Yeah. Yeah.
and I really need to go out there. So he does. And Rocky does a lot of things in 2 hours.
Yes, he
Like
does.
he has readjusted the airlock. He
Mhm.
is ready to learn. He's still in the tunnel, and there are
Mhm.
more things in the tunnel.
Mhm.
And Ryland's like, okay, we need to start really trying to we figured out some time
Mhm.
and some numbers a little bit.
Mhm.
I want to try measurement now.
Yeah.
And this cracked me up. So he's like, okay, I'm going to go get a tape measure.
Yep.
And it's one of those retractable ones that you
Mhm.
can pull out.
Mhm.
And so he goes and gets it and brings it and tries to show Rocky through the glass
Yep.
that there's little lines on it.
Mhm.
And so he kind of points to them and shows them, and then he puts it in the airlock. And Rocky takes it out and he pulls it
Bing.
and then snaps it, like a child.
Yeah.
And he's so excited and he keeps pulling it and snapping it. And Ryland's like, no, look at the little lines. Like, look at the, and he's like, this isn't working. Like, he keeps just
Mhm.
playing around with it and he's pulling it out and he's tangling all around
He's
himself.
making knots out of it.
And he's having a ball.
Yep.
But Ryland's like, something's off here.
Well, and this is, I also forgot to mention when he watched Rocky go back into his ship to get his clock.
Mhm.
Rylan noticed that his ship was completely like pitch black. There weren't any lights in there. And so this also, it's important that I bring that up because in this moment, it helps Rylan realize, like, wait a second, can he doesn't have eyes. Can he actually see it?
Mhm.
Um, and then like kind of thinks a little bit more like, wait, the symbols on his clock are raised.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, holy crap, like that does nothing for you. You can't see those tiny, you can't read those
Mhm.
tiny marks on there.
He is then starts to hypothesize echolocation,
Mm-hmm.
like what bats use.
Yep.
And so he goes and gets some type of sheet of metal or plastic or something.
Aluminum.
That's what it is. And he puts it between the glass and himself and starts doing hand
Yeah,
gestures.
so he does it first without the aluminum. He does like a 1, a
Mm,
3, a 5,
mhm,
and a 7 or something like that. And Rocky mimics him and he's like, "Okay,
mhm.
we're playing the mimic game." Then he puts the aluminum up and does the same number sequence behind the aluminum, and Rocky can
Does the
still
same
mimic.
thing. And he's like, the aluminum would block light, but it wouldn't block sound. And so
Mhm.
he's like, oh, he can't actually see me.
Mhm.
He uses sound like a bat.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so that was really cool to see and realize that, they're completely different because humans are not like that. Like
Mhm.
we need light. We are so dependent on our eyes.
Mhm.
And having that is potentially, especially in space where
Yeah.
everything is dark, a super huge advantage
Mhm.
Rocky has over Ryland at this point.
Mhm. Yeah. So then we get a flashback to a trial
Yeah.
where we see Strat in court, and she's basically being sued by basically every, well, a company that's representing quite a bit of people,
Mhm.
because she's using every single piece of software that's ever been copyrighted, every book, anything that's ever been digitized, um, in digital format to create like a library.
Mhm.
And she's defending it pretty quickly. Like, well, yeah, I'm sending 3 people on a mission to save the world. We don't know what science experiments they're going to be doing. So they need to have access to absolutely everything we can give them. She goes, will they need, what's that mind bomb game?
Minesweeper.
Yeah, Minesweeper. She goes, will they need that? No, but it's there just in case.
Mhm.
You never know. And this next part was a bit terrifying because she's like, I just want to dismiss this case. Like, she's annoyed. She doesn't want to have the time for it or whatever. And she hands over 2 pieces of paper.
Mhm.
She has been pre pardoned by the
By the
President of
president.
the United
Mhm.
States for any crime on United States soil. And there's been an international treaty that was put in place 2 years ago that made her immune from prosecution for any crime anywhere on earth.
Mhm.
That's a lot of power to hand to one person.
And I feel like we've seen her wield this like
Hmm.
she's gonna bulldoze anybody and everybody. She
Yes.
doesn't she's because she knows she's doing what she needs to
Yeah.
do to save the human race. And I think she was chosen for this purpose, like because she is so singularly focused on her
Hmm.
goal. She's not going to use this for personal gain.
Mm-mm.
Her personal gain is saving everybody else.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't care what happens to her. And I love how she like keeps trying to cut people off. Like, can we just be done with this? I'm here because
Hmm.
I could do this and take care of it all at once,
Yep.
basically. And otherwise, this is a waste of my
Yeah.
time. And the judge is like, these are real. Like,
Hmm.
okay, we're letting this go. And they're all upset, which, like, on the one hand, I get it. You want to make sure that you are compensated for all of your
Hmm.
work, but this is going to be contained on a ship that's on a suicide mission. Really?
Right?
Like, it's not, and it's three people. It's not like it's being broadcast to everyone on the planet or every other planet. And even if it was to every other planet, how are you going to get that compensation? You know
Right?
what I mean? Like, I feel like it was silly of them to fight her, but
Yeah.
I think this was put in to show her power and
Hmm.
how she could really do anything.
Hmm.
And also with especially with like the international recognition of
Hmm.
her basically get out of jail free card, how everyone is so invested and is working together.
Yeah. For this
Hmm.
to be a successful mission.
Yeah.
It's also a godsend that Rylan has access to this because clearly
Hmm.
he ran into alien life. So, if he can have access to any knowledge that there is out there, any computer programming that could possibly help him, because his next goal is to figure out how to understand Rocky's language
Hmm.
and for Rocky to understand him
Which
to communicate.
who would have thought
It,
that he would need some type of musical analyzer?
mm-mm,
And that's exactly what he uses
mm-hmm,
to start basically making himself a vocabulary of Rocky's words. Um, he tapes two laptops together,
yep,
and on one laptop has an Excel spreadsheet where he
mm-hmm,
puts in the chord and the word, and on the other laptop has the musical analyzer so that it records the sound, puts the sound into the spreadsheet, and then he can record the word,
mm-hmm,
corresponding word into
mm-hmm.
that spreadsheet.
So it all works together, and then
Mhm.
it will end up eventually being able to work as a translator for him as well, because once he's
Mhm.
got basically that whole list of words, phrases, and everything, when he's
Mhm.
hearing things, it will just translate it for him. Ingenious. I don't know that I could have ever come up with it, but that's why I'm not on the Hail Mary and he is.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's how my brain would have worked either. And as a linguist, this is probably the most interesting part for me because it's like,
Hmm.
how do you get two different, not just different in words, not, it's not like I'm trying to talk to somebody from, who speaks Farsi.
Hmm.
A lot of human languages use similar sounds or you can figure it out.
Hmm.
But going from a musical language, especially one that can play multiple chords at the same time to
Hmm.
create a word, um, to a human language, which is all with vocal cords as opposed to musical chords,
Hmm.
like, how are you going to translate that? And, like, is he going to try to play musical chords back to him? Like, how is this going to work? And
Right.
so I was really excited to see how they were going to create this vocabulary.
Hmm. Yeah, so we get to see a lot of it. Well, first of all, Rylan does pause to go like sleep again, and he he oversleeps.
Which I don't get, okay? He set an alarm for himself for the 2 hours. He tells Rocky he's going to be back in 8 hours, and he sleeps 10
Yep.
hours. And I'm like, you can't put in there and tell me
Yeah.
that you were able to wake yourself up after 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't do it for the 8 hours?
Yep. Yep.
Get it together, man.
But also, this is one of my favorite parts because Rylan gets back there to Rocky at the divider, and Rocky's going,
Mhm. Well, and he had used popsicle sticks or something to like show what the
yes.
time was so Rocky could see it. And so Rocky's like pointing at the thing, like, excuse me, you said this time.
Yep.
And he's like, I know, I'm sorry. And then he starts trying to build the vocabulary
Yeah. He starts with the basics with numbers.
with numbers. And so we get like if you have the physical in front of you, you get kind of like a little bit of what Rocky's characters look like, which I
Mm-hmm.
think are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Rocky is like insanely smart.
Mm-hmm.
And that he kind of shows going through the numbers and getting those down, and
Mm-hmm.
then we skip a lot.
Yeah.
And I, of course, I'm like bummed because we get so much science. And the one part that I'm like super excited about because I want to see language contact and how that works. They kind of do like one, two, skip a few, and now we have 50,000 words or whatever.
yes.
And so they now are starting with this vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
and what Rylan realizes is that Rocky has like a photographic memory, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
also really interesting. Um, and they through their communication have now realized that they're both there because of the astrophage. So he
Mm-hmm.
now confirms his suspicion
Yeah.
that wherever Rocky is from Arid, he
Mm-hmm.
did say that in the
Yes.
beginning.
Yes.
So that Rocky's planet of Arid is also being affected by the astrophage, and he
Mm-hmm.
has also come here because Tau Ceti. They realized Tau Ceti wasn't
Yeah.
dying as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I like the way that Rylan does it too because he like brings a physical example of astrophage to Rocky to
Mm-hmm.
get Rocky to like name it
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing so that they've got it in the vocabulary. And Rocky because he's also still like he's trying to understand Rylan's, you know, vocabulary and everything. So he's not getting all the pronouns and things like that right. But he says astrophage on me start bad bad bad.
Yes, and that's also something that's really interesting in
Mhm.
language in general. Like we see Rocky using something called reduplication
Mhm.
um, with to like intensify, and
Yes.
if you think about it, that's also something we do in like in English. It's like I'm going home, but I'm not going home. And
Mhm.
like home would mean like your actual like where you grew up or something. And like regular home would be maybe your apartment at college or something. You know, we use reduplication in different ways, and we see Rocky when he wants to intensify something,
Mhm.
he says it multiple
Yeah,
times.
3 times.
And I think that it was such a smart thing to put
Mhm.
in that shows like and Rylan starts to do it too, even though he's like speaking English, he'll say the word several times.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is taking quite a bit of time for them to build up this vocabulary and
Mm-hmm.
everything. We kind of get the sense that like almost a day has gone by of them communicating. And so Rylan, you know, it communicates to him like, "Hey, I need to go sleep." And like tells him what sleep is. And so Rocky's like, "Okay, you sleep, I observe." And Rylan's like, "What? What do you mean?" He goes, "You sleep, I observe." He's like, "You you don't have to do that." And we come to find out through this interaction right here that Rocky used to be on a crew of 23 and now he's alone. And Rylan couldn't originally understand that because his octave changed, it got lower. And so Rylan had to like change something in the input in his computer programming for it to translate it. And
Mm-hmm.
so then he also the put two and two together to realize that like, okay, like just like we do, we change our, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the tone of our voices. Like he changed the octave to show emotion here.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not really pushing it, but he can tell that it really does bother Rocky. And so he goes and gets his like bed and duct tapes it to the wall,
Mm-hmm.
turns out all
Yeah.
his lights because it's not bothering Rocky that
Yeah.
it's dark, and he sleeps and Rocky observes.
And that's like a cultural thing on
Mhm.
Arid is that they watch each other sleep. And we don't really know why
Mm-mm.
yet, but that's, it like breaks my heart that he's been alone.
Mhm.
And we don't know how long he's been
Mm-mm.
alone, but just like that his crew died. And so if he sleeps, like he feels very scared when he sleeps.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing right before the sleeping part is that they're trying to work on units of mass,
Mhm.
and Rocky gives Grace a ball, Ryland a ball of something, and he's
Oh,
like
yes.
he tries to say something. It's 26, and he's like 26 what? And he's like hold on, and scampers off.
Mhm.
And then Ryland, being Ryland, is
Mhm.
like, oh, I'll just do this quick experiment. And he goes and he does this experiment,
Mhm.
and he comes back, and Rocky's all upset at him.
Yep.
And the experiment is like it goes awry at first, and he kind of figures out what the mass is, and then he realizes that Rocky was trying to tell him that it was the
Yeah.
26th element and that it
Mhm.
was iron, and if he had just waited, he did all this unnecessary work.
Yep.
And then he was like, dang, I was actually really close, like at least my experiment worked. And it's like, yeah, but just
Just be
you tell
patient.
him to wait all the time. And I just thought that was a funny, like, it just chill out a little bit, my
Yeah.
dude, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, and I love it too because like we've seen Rocky wave, we've seen
Mhm.
Rocky mimic the thumbs up, we've seen Rocky mimic the
Hold on.
hold on. He gets the his little
Mhm.
fist or whatever. Um, I didn't say it earlier, but we also see that when he is happy about something, like when they made that correlation with the
Mhm.
clocks, just hands.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he does do jazz hands. And I
Oh.
I love that because I feel like nonverbal communication is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Even like I don't think people even realize they're doing it a lot of times, but
Yeah.
like between these two, it's like a big
Yeah.
element to their communication.
Yeah. The next flashback we see is Rylan and Strat in prison.
Not being held in
No,
prison, but at a prison.
at a prison,
Yes.
visiting a prisoner, Dr. Robert Riddell. Oh,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
he's an ex solar farm owner. He is being well. He's been charged with the death of 7 people, and what's the other thing I'm thinking of that I'm losing?
Embezzling.
Embezzling. Thank you. Yeah.
He's been charged with the deaths.
Yes.
However, it's more about the fact that he embezzled
Yes.
money.
Yeah. So he had a solar farm, things went awry. That's not really the full important part. Rylan does not like him
Yeah.
because of negligence and
Oh, also he's Australian. The
yes.
the prison is in Australia.
Yes. And so Strat is there because she wants to find out about his black panel theory. And so basically it's taking solar thermal power, which takes a bunch of mirrors to heat for that sun. Blah, blah, blah. It takes a bunch of mirrors that take sunlight to heat water, make it boil, and then they run a turbine, and that creates energy. But with black panels, you could do this, but not need all of the water and all of that because you would use the astrophage and then be able to basically make the heat energy and breed faster. I'm condensing this
Mhm.
down quite a bit. Um, but in order to do this on such a large scale, they would have to take over a quarter of the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, so he's like, "Yeah, I have this theory." She's like, "Could you Our problem is scaling. We want
Mm-hmm.
to scale the reproduction of astrophage because we need 2 million
Mm-hmm.
kilograms um to power the Hail Mary." And he's like, "Yeah, you could do that with paving over basically a quarter of the
Mm-hmm.
Sahara Desert." Because she's like, okay, you can scale it. Does this work? She looks at Ryland. Is this realistic? He's like, yeah, but I don't know where you would put it. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, you have the biggest
Yeah.
like solar. absorbing piece of land in the world. There's
Mm-hmm.
the Sahara Desert. And so they take him up on it. They're like,
Yeah.
he's nuts. He's
Yep.
absolutely nuts. But um they're like, you know what? That's what we need to do. And so you see them say, okay, you Strat, you're coming with us.
Yep. You're part of the crew. And Riddell actually goes, yeah. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. Well, again, Strat's power.
Mm-hmm.
So we see this flashback, and then we see Rylan and
Mm-hmm.
Rocky back together. And they're still kind of talking through that they're still both there looking for, why Talsetti isn't sick. And Rocky kind of explains, because Rylan finally asks him, like, how are you the only one left? Like, I mean, I am too, but like, how are you the only one left if you had such a big crew? And Rocky explains how, like, all of his crewmates, like their cells, he explains that their cells got sick, and like
Mm-hmm.
they slowly started dying, like everybody. He goes, but not Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that he was describing it, Rylan realizes that they all died of radiation sickness,
Mm-hmm.
and that Rocky and all of the Iridians don't have any knowledge of radiation, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of makes sense, because if you think of their environment, this is Ryland's processing, right? Their environment, their atmosphere is so heavy
Mm-hmm.
that radiation can't get through.
Yeah.
And so before he kind of explains radiation, he's like, all right, Rocky, come on, we got to talk science here. And we see another kind of flashback
Mm-hmm.
to astrophage, where I forget this doctor's name.
Locken. It's
Thank you.
Dr. Locken from Norway.
From Norway, comes in and explains a little bit more about some discoveries that they've made, about astrophage and how it
Mm-hmm.
makes neutrinos itself, which
Mm-hmm.
I am not big into science. So this one right here, kind of like, I was like reading it and going,
Sure.
uh
Mm-hmm.
huh. So basically, astrophage is radiation resistance. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's basically the purpose of this flashback is to
Yeah.
say, like, okay, my idea
Mm
is to run astrophage all along the hull
hmm.
and circulate it so that it will block any radiation.
Mm hmm.
Because she's asking Rylan about, um, she's like, what about solar radiation?
Mm hmm.
And he tells her like how fast it travels, and she's like, oh, then we don't have to worry about solar radiation because you guys will be outside of the galaxy with before it hits you. And she's like, but what about radiation basically just in space?
Mm hmm.
And they discuss that, and she's like, okay, so we would be good if we just did this.
Yeah.
And so then we know now that that's how the
Protected.
ship is being protected.
Mm hmm. Yeah. And then we get another flashback, to understand a little bit more of the time span. We meet
Mm-hmm.
a climate specialist, Francois Leclerc, that basically predicts that in 19 years, half of the people currently alive will be dead
Mm-hmm.
because of the astrophage. That they're already seeing like changes in weather patterns. Like, there are places on Earth that have never seen a tornado, let alone had tornado in their vocabulary, and now they do.
Mm-hmm.
And Strat's basically like, 19 years isn't good enough.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how to get in 27 years of time, because it's going to take 13 years for the Hail Mary to get to Talsetti, another 13 years for those results or
Mm-hmm.
data to get back to Earth. And she goes, and it'd be really nice if we could have like a year of buffer room to like figure out how to even use that data. So she wants 27 years to work, and basically tells this climatologist, like, get me some greenhouse effect, come up with something that makes us last at least 27 years. I'm not willing to lose half of humanity. Just go do it. Just go do it.
So we I want to know how much time has passed because I feel like with the flashbacks, it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
track time. So how long since the Petrovaline
Yeah.
was discovered or since the astrophage were announced, is it, till we meet Dr. Leclerc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is very unclear.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's somebody who is very intimate with, like, intimate knowledge of the climate and the environment and how these things will change over time. And she's like, I just, a good blanket of greenhouse gases could insulate the earth,
Yeah.
right? Like that could keep heat
Mm-hmm.
in while we're waiting and buy us some time. And he's like, technically, but literally his entire career has been fighting
Mm-hmm.
to reduce greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
So, like, that is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like when you're saying with the flashbacks with times, we do get a sense that at least a couple of years have gone by because I want to say originally, like when they found it to when Ryland's sitting in his apartment, if you think back to like the first part of the book,
Mm-hmm.
when he sees like the first presidential address when they get their first astrophage and he sees it move,
Mm-hmm.
I think like a whole year had happened then.
Yeah.
And then at another point, I want to say they had said another 2 years has passed. So, like, I think minimum we've known about astrophage for at least 3 years. But then, like, you also have, since Ryland's been on the big Hail Mary project, I want to know how much time has also gone in there. So it's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's very unclear what the actual chronological time is.
Mm-hmm.
And with some of these advancements that are made, you would think they take years to
Mm-hmm.
happen. And so it's just, yeah, I wish I had a better idea of where we were
Yeah.
and like how these, I assume we're getting the flashbacks in order, like
Yeah.
he's getting them, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah. So he sits down and kind of explains radiation to Rocky,
Mm-hmm.
and it's setting in on Rocky. You can see Rocky's like he like kind of shrinks in on himself,
Yeah.
his little carapace. Um, and Rocky was like, "Well, the rest of my crew was out throughout the ship, but like he's like the engineer. He's down
Mm-hmm.
by the engine. He's surrounded by the fuel. He's working on things. Like I'm the
Mm-hmm.
person that fixes things when they break."
Because he's confused. He's like, well, why didn't I die?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else died. Why didn't I get sick?
Mm-hmm. And so when he realizes, when Rylan realizes, well, you were surrounded by the astrophage, which is
Mm-hmm.
fueling your ship, he tells Rocky, like, well, astrophage naturally is
Mm-hmm.
radiation resistant. And so you were just
Lucky.
lucky you were protected because of your job and where you were. Um,
And he tells Rocky,
yeah.
stay near those parts of your ship as
Mm-hmm.
much as you can, basically, so you don't get
Mm-hmm.
sick.
Yeah. And he also tells them like to bring astrophage into the tunnel
Tunnel. Mm-hmm.
so that when he's in the tunnel, he's not
Radiated.
susceptible to the radiation. Um, and so, yeah, and then Rylan also brings up questions about the similarities between him and Rocky, and
Yeah.
not necessarily in looks, of course, but in intelligence and in their knowledge, in
Mm-hmm.
communication, things like that. And they don't really go into it a ton,
Mm-hmm.
but Rocky has a theory that somehow they're family, that they're related. And so Ryland had said, well, yeah, we kind of thought about this, me and another scientist, that astrophage is very similar to life on Earth. So
Yeah.
maybe Earth life and astrophage somehow came from a similar ancestor and
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
mutated, migrated, whatever. So,
Yeah.
like, why couldn't that have happened with Rocky as well? Like, there's this
Mm-hmm.
whole evolution cycle. And so he's like, maybe we are. Maybe we are related. And I was like, no.
And then we get another flashback with Dr. Leclerc again,
Mm-hmm.
and they are at Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
And so the plan here is they've put 250 nuclear weapons
Mm-hmm.
in a line, basically,
Yeah.
in the Atlantic ice shelf, and they're going to explode them.
Yeah.
and knock a bunch of ice into the ocean,
Mhm.
because at one point Antarctica was a jungle, and it then over time froze over, and all of those all the vegetation and animals and things that were originally on there decayed, and all of that methane gas
Mhm.
was trapped inside the ice. And so, if they knock the ice into the ocean, it will then help release the gas.
Mhm.
And, you see Ryland talking to Dr. LeClaire, and he is obviously
Yeah.
torn up about this. And he's like, but I would rather it be methane, because methane breaks down
Mhm.
in 10 years, and you can't do that with CO2.
Mhm.
So, this really is the best option. And so they're all in this boat, him and the Dr. LeClaire and Strat, and you see basically the bombs go off,
Mhm.
and the ice goes into the ocean, and this man just like breaks down
Yeah.
and cries. He's like, I have been fighting this my entire life, and now I've just had to reverse everything
Yeah.
that I've done. And I just feel so devastated for him.
Mhm.
He is making the best choice he possibly
Yeah.
can, but to have your life's work like be totally degraded because of
Mhm.
this. I mean, there's a way to look at it where it's like, this gas, you're making the best choice because this gas
Yep.
will break down in 10 years. It is also helping to insulate the earth so that maybe you guys have more time,
Yeah.
but woof,
Woof.
I do
Yeah.
not um I do not envy him.
No, not at all. Um, Rylan and Rocky get to talking a little bit, and Rylan gets to learn a lot about Rocky. And they start talking about like biology and makeup. And Rylan, being the scientist that he is writing down quite a lot of what he's learning from Rocky about Rocky himself. Um, and he has this like rocky exterior look, but he's made out of like minerals and even metallic alloys and everything. So like he's got to be heavy.
Yeah. And he like, even his blood is
Hmm.
basically like
Mercury.
mercury.
Hmm.
Like, he is dense.
Yeah. He finds out that there are like single celled organisms that run through his bloodstream that will either build up or like repair his body as needed. So, like, kind of like, the cells that we've got in our body that help fight infections. Um, they're steam powered, hence the hot and environment that
Mhm.
they live in. Um, they can't wake up when they're sleeping. Like,
They're paralyzed.
they're actually paralyzed,
Mhm.
which is why in their culture, another Arid, will watch while they sleep. So Ryland finally understands like
Mhm.
they're at their most vulnerable state when they sleep. It can be very scary, like they
Mhm.
might not wake up. And so he kind of gets a little bit more realization and understanding about like why it is so important to him. And then he also kind of makes the realization that like because of that like sonar type, the echolocation that he uses, like basically his entire body, it's not just like his hands or part of his arms, like his entire body is basically like a microphone. He can use any part of it to help like
Mhm.
him
Yeah.
see and understand the environment around him, which I thought was pretty neat.
And he also explains that to Rocky, that humans hear
Mm-hmm.
light. And this like stuns Rocky. He thinks eyes are the coolest thing.
Yes.
He's like, I gave you so many options for the wall basically, and you picked this one
Mm-hmm.
because light goes through it. And Ryan was like,
Yeah.
yeah, basically. He's like, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, I'm done. And he's like, Rocky says that, and
Mm-hmm.
Grace is like, what are you done with? He builds himself a life support
Yeah.
system, and basically a little hamster ball, so
Yes.
that he can visit Ryland's ship. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
I come over, that's allowed. And he's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What do you want to see? And he's like, so Ryland is so excited. He's like,
Yeah.
I have to adjust the tunnel.
Yeah.
So you have to go back in. So then Ryland's like, goes in and cleans
Cleans
up
up, yeah.
because he wasn't expecting visitors. But
Yeah.
it's so exciting. Like Rocky is so invested
Yeah.
in all the science that's happening
Mm-hmm.
on the Hail Mary,
Yeah.
and it's so cute.
Yeah. Well, because he's like, you have a thinking machine. We don't have one, talking about the computers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like, I want to see all the things that you have. And so we get to see, after a bit of tinkering.
Mm-hmm. And something he notices, so Rocky jettisons the old tunnel
Yeah.
and he builds a new tunnel, and Ryland's like,
Uh-huh.
it's too small for me to go through, so I
Yes.
guess I'm not going to the blip A anytime
Yes.
soon. Like, he's all kind of grouchy about it.
Yep.
But this new tunnel has like metal going down the middle. And I think something that is really cool is that Rocky has magnets
Mm-hmm.
inside his hamster ball, and he uses those to move himself along.
Yes.
And I thought that was so ingenious.
Yeah. I love a quote, but I love the way Rocky talks, because now, like, Ryland is so used to the chords that he's understanding them, or he's,
Mm-hmm.
using the computer when he's not understanding things, that we're not getting the musical notes, though you can still hear the music-ish sound to his voice in the
Mm-hmm.
audiobook. He goes, "You ship has more science than me ship. Better science. I bring my things into you ship. Release the tunnel. You make you ship spin for science. You and me science how to kill astrophage together. Save Earth. Save Aaron."
So yeah, he rolls over basically
Yeah.
to the airlock, and Ryland like picks up the ball and carries him around to give
Yes.
him a tour. And he's
Yeah.
like,
Because
"Ooh,
it's 0 G.
yeah, because he can't have gravity right now because obviously he would have to knock the tunnel away to
Mm-hmm.
spin the ship." And so he's carrying him around, and Rocky's like, "I want to see the science room. I want to
Yeah.
do science." And he's like, "Oh, well, I can't do that unless we break the ship,
Yeah.
to make it spin." He's like, "Oh, that's why you ship spin." And so he's like, that's when he decides to move in. I'm going
Yep.
to move in.
I'm
I'm
just
going
gonna
to
move in.
I will go back to my ship and grab all my stuff, and then we can knock the tunnel down and do science in your ship,
Yeah.
which I think is hilarious
Yes.
because he's just like, I'm moving in.
Yep.
This is the better plan.
Yeah. So he goes from, sole surviving space explorer to a guy with a wacky new roommate.
Yes. And I giggled out loud at that.
Me too.
And then we get a flashback
Mm-hmm.
with the doctor that
Oh
discovered the
yes.
coma resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Strat and Grace at
Mm-hmm.
her lab, and she's showing the mechanical arm, which we've
Yes.
grown to know and love and takes care of
Mm-hmm.
Ryland. And she's like, well, this model was not meant to be independent.
Yeah.
There should, with the way we built it, be a doctor on board that basically, if something happens or there's something that is enough of an emergency, the
Mm-hmm.
doctor will come look at it. She's like, but we're making significant gains
Yeah.
with the independent one. So obviously they're developing that. During this visit, both Strat and Grace are tested.
Mm-hmm.
They get their blood taken
Yeah.
to see if they are coma resistant.
Yeah.
And you're like, and Ryland is also like, I'm not volunteering. She's like, I don't care.
Yeah. It seemed very calculated to me. I mean, she gave a good enough reason. She volunteered first, and she's like, Rylan, you next. She said, I want everyone on this project, even tangentially related, to get tested. Astronauts are a rare breed, and only 1 in 7,000 of them will be coma resistant. We might not have enough qualified candidates. We need to be ready to expand the pool. So I feel like, I don't know, it just felt icky, to be honest.
Well, and we know he is, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know he is because he's on the ship.
Yeah.
So obviously he's coma resistant. And at that point, he said he wasn't volunteering. So
Mm-hmm.
how did he get here?
Yeah.
Is what I'm asking at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Obviously, she had him tested. He has the gene. He's on the ship, but
Yeah.
what made him change his mind?
Yeah. It just felt ugh to
Uh,
me.
and then afterwards, like right after the flashback, he's like, I moved in with one of my roommates,
Yes.
or one of my girlfriends, Linda, and
Uh-huh.
Linda brought a lot of stuff. But compared to Linda, like Rocky is insane, and Linda was a minimalist. She was a Spartan. And Rocky brings, well, not Rocky, because Rocky's in his ball, but
Yeah.
he tells Ryland to bring all of these bags in.
Yeah.
And he, like, fills up like half of the
Yeah.
dormitory with all of his bags. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm here now. And they knock the tunnel away.
Mhm.
And he's like, they're trying to figure out what their next steps are.
Mhm.
And their plan is to go collect some local astrophage
Yes.
and see what's up with that. And they kind of have this little conversation about um, how long Rocky was alone.
Yes.
And so they're doing math, and Rocky does everything in seconds. So like Grace tells him how many seconds, or he tells Grace how many seconds, and then he explains a day and a year. And Rocky's been alone
Mhm.
at Tau Ceti for 46 years,
Yeah.
and he's like, he's been alone longer than I've been alive.
Yep.
And then he's like, wait a second, how long does an Iridian live? And Rocky says, on average, 689 years. And he's like, Earth years? He's like, yes, Earth years. You're bad at math.
Yeah, your human brain's bad at math. I convert everything for you.
And then he's like, so wait a second, how old are you? And he said, 291 years old.
Yep.
And Ryland is like, Rocky is older than the
Mhm.
United States.
Yep.
Like, it is insane how long they live and
Mhm.
how much time changes. I think your
Yep.
perception of time changes
Yep.
with the length of time that
Yeah.
you're expected to live.
Yeah.
And then Rocky's like, why? How long humans live? And then the chapter cuts. So,
Yep.
like, probably Ryland didn't tell him then,
Yeah.
but that is extraordinary. And, like, again, I feel like this also goes back to their atmosphere and their
Mhm.
makeup. Like, they obviously are made of really sturdy stuff
Yeah.
and live in really, I wouldn't say harsh, but like intense
Yeah.
conditions. And so it makes sense that they would live longer lives. Plus, the way that they experience time is probably different than the
Yeah.
way we experience time.
Yeah. So throughout this, they've still been in zero gravity. They haven't been able to do science yet. Ryland's, kind of carried him from room to room to show him the different parts of the ship, and he wanted to see the science room again. And so Ryland was like, "Use your magnets on this table," because the table was like a metal surface, and he was able to hold himself like on that. But then Ryland's like, "You ready for some gravity so we can do some science?" And Rocky's all excited for it. Um, and so Ryland gets the centrifuge up and running. And Rocky experiences Earth gravity for the first time. And he's like,
This
this
is
is
nothing.
nothing. But with Earth gravity, Rocky is able to move around in his little space ball all by himself. And then they kind of figure out because like Ryland's like, okay, we got to get to work and like we need to work quickly.
Well, because Rocky's like, I want to make a living space for myself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to just be in my bubble this
Hmm.
whole time. So he's like, okay, I'll make a living space. And Ryland's like, you got to move though, dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool, but we have to get working.
Yeah.
And he's like, Rocky's like, why?
Yeah, why? And so Rylan kind of explained to him, like, because of the differences on Arid and Earth, like we're being affected differently, our environment's being affected differently. Like, I only have this much time. And Rocky's like, but we've been affected for this long. We have like 72 years or something like that
Mm-hmm.
before,
Big
anything
problems.
happens until big
Mm-hmm.
problems happen. And he was like, well, yeah, Arid has a whole lot more, heat stored in its air, but Earth is getting cold like really, 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 really fast. Like in 13
Mm-hmm.
years, most of humanity will be dead. And so like
We gotta move.
we gotta move. And so Rocky was like, "Well, okay, we'll do that. We'll move fast so that you can get home and you can save Earth."
Mm-hmm.
And Ryland's like, "Well, I'll just send my information home." Like, finally, like breaks the ice. Like, I'm
I'm
gonna,
not going
I'm not
home.
going home. I don't have enough fuel. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
die out here.
Yeah, Rocky asks him, "Well, why wouldn't you go home?" And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "We only had enough time to get enough fuel to go one way."
Mm-hmm.
And Rocky's like, "And you knew this before you left?" And
Mm-hmm.
he said, "Yes." And Rocky says, "You're a good human." And then he asks him how much he'll
Yeah.
need, and he said 2 million kilograms. And Rocky says, "I can give it to you.
Yep.
I can give." And Grace is like, what? That's too much. And he's like, we were basically super efficient
Mm-hmm.
and I have extra. And so he offers to
Mm-hmm.
give Grace enough. He's like, I'll go home 6 years slower, but I'll basically give it to you. And Ryland breaks down.
Yeah.
And like, I can't imagine
Gosh, no.
having accepted that you're going to die
Mm-hmm.
and this is a one-way trip and you need to find the answer and send it home and then
Yeah.
that's it, and then getting this opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
then go home afterwards, like I don't know that it just has to be a shock to your
Yeah.
system. Like I don't know how you even process that.
Mm-mm. No. The crushing relief that must come over you at that moment.
And is it like I feel like there's an element of panic and then
Mm-hmm.
he has to like think about, well, they only gave us enough
Food.
food
Mm-hmm.
to go one way. And yeah, two of his crewmates died.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, do you go back into a coma at that point? And is there a way for me to say, put me back into a
Yeah,
coma?
like, does he have that ability? We have no idea.
And how much time do you experience? Because
Mm-hmm.
we've talked a little bit about relativity. I think he said something like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like how all of the like there has to be relief but also a panic.
Yeah.
But we don't get quite there yet.
No, we don't, because Rocky is just like, I am happy, die. Let's save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get a flashback and we see the 6 crew members for the Hail Mary. We find that there's a primary crew and a backup crew, and that nobody can ever be together at the same time. They can't be in the same car together. They can't be on the same helicopter together, because, we just don't want anything happening. We need to keep these people safe for the time of their training so that we can have every possible outcome be good.
Because like Strat said, there
Mm-hmm.
are only so many like coma resistant people
Yes.
and only so many qualified people.
Yes.
So the fact that we have these two crews of 3 is a miracle as it is. And so we don't want
Mm-hmm.
anybody like any chance of not having a complete crew.
Yeah. So the primary crew is Yal Yukna and Dubois. And the backup to Dubois is Shapiro, which Rylan like fanboys over for a second. He's like, the Shapiro? Because big science nerd, yada, yada, yada.
And he asks, why isn't she your main?
Yeah.
Why isn't she your main choice? And she's like, well, Dubois has more of a wide range because he has like 3 PhDs or something like that. Like it's in 3 different types of necessary science. And I'm sitting here thinking, who the hell is Dubois?
Uh-huh.
We know about Yao and Ilyugna because those are
Mm-hmm.
the 2 crew members he was on with
Yep.
and that he buried in space.
Yep.
And so it's like, what happens that both
Yes.
Dubois and Shapiro, because not
Yep.
obviously neither one of them was on the ship. Why is Grace here?
Yeah.
And so you keep like there's more and more things that keep coming up.
Yeah.
But there's an interaction between Grace and Dubois.
Mm-hmm.
Grace is just told just then that he will be training Dubois and Shapiro
Mm-hmm.
on astrophage. And he's like, why me? Like, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like a science teacher. And she's like, you are one of the leading
Yep.
people that know about astrophage. And so you will be training them
Yep.
on what they need to know. And Dubois comes up and introduces himself and starts talking to him. And he's like, oh, we're 2 of a kind. He's like, yeah, we're both science nerds. And he's like, no, we're
Mm-hmm.
both coma resistant. And he's like, what? And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, they didn't tell you? You also have the gene. And that also makes me
Yep.
suspicious because why wouldn't she have told him
Yeah.
that, he had this gene
Mm-hmm.
and it just seems like frivolous information maybe.
Yeah.
But we get another inkling here like, something's fishy is going on.
Yeah. So then we see Rocky and Ryland on their way to be able to sample like the local astrophage.
At the breeding planet.
Yes. And it's named Tau Ceti E, lowercase e.
Mm-hmm.
And Rocky's like, that's a stupid name.
Like,
Like,
this boring name.
yeah, like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And so Ryland, he's like, well, it's an earth rule. If you see it first or you've spotted it first, you name it. And
Mm-hmm.
so Rocky thinks and like pauses and thinks for a while or whatever. And then he says, a name. And Ryland can't find a translation for it or whatever. And Rocky just kind of like quietly lives like, it's the name of my mate. And Ryland's like,
Mm-hmm.
you have a mate? Like, you've been holding out on me? And
Mm-hmm.
realizes that, like, there's this whole other intricate part to, Rocky and Rocky society. And he's like, well, I don't know. I've been gone for a long time. So, like, maybe she's not my mate anymore. She might have found somebody else. Like, she might not be waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rocky's like, I don't know. You decide what it should be called in your language, like what that name should be. And so he goes, Adrian, why not?
Which I love,
Yes.
and it tracks with Ryland's humor
Mm-hmm.
because Rocky Balboa, he's always
Yep.
calling for Adrian
Yep.
after his fights, and so I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And obviously Rocky doesn't get the joke, but
No,
everybody else
everybody
does.
else does.
And so they also, after that, Rocky's like, okay, I need to eat. And Ryland's like, "Ooh, I want to watch," and he's like, "No."
No.
Like Rocky wants him to watch him sleep, but eating, not
Nope.
no. And he's like, "Come on, let me watch." And he's like, "Oh, fine." And so he goes into his area in the dormitory, and he gets out this thing of food, and he starts like ripping it into little bits.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryland's just sitting there like watching him. And he goes to he backs away from this little pile of food, and like his underbelly like rips out
Mm-hmm.
and like plops onto this like container thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even some like metallic, what we assume is his blood, like comes out. So this seems like painful. And then he goes back over to the pile of food and rolls on his back and then uses his like little claws to like put food into the
Mm-hmm.
hole, and then it like scabs over, and then he sounds drunk
Yep.
and is like, watch me sleep. And Rylan is grossed out by this. It sounds gross. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it sounds painful
I think it sounds
mostly.
painful. Um, I just love Ryland's reaction to it because he's like, basically, they go to the bathroom and they eat from the exact same spot.
And there's a word for it, and he says that.
I don't remember what it
I
is.
don't remember what the word is, but like I think like starfish are the same. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
have
yeah,
like the
yeah.
one hole in the middle. And yeah, he's like, I watched him eat, and now I know how Iridians eat and poop, I guess.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. So they're continuing to travel closer to Adrian. And they get close enough to be able to read the atmosphere finally. They find out that it's carbon dioxide, methane, argon, a bunch of other trace things. And Rylan gets confused about like the methane because methane should only come from there being living things. And so he's just like, that doesn't make sense. What's happening?
What do you mean it doesn't make sense? You're in space in a different solar
You
system.
just met Rocky.
Like,
Yeah.
get it together, man.
And so then Ryland's like, all right, I guess I'll, he does a Petrova scope sample.
Yes, so he has like an exterior sampler,
Yeah.
which is what Rocky is excited about because
Yes.
his ship used to have one and then it
Broke off.
And he's like, well, why didn't you fix it? He's like, no, it broke off.
Yep.
Like it wasn't able to. And he's like, okay, so they collect a sample, but he has to do an EVA to go get it.
Yeah.
And Rocky is like, humans are like they have to translate the word crazy.
Yeah, because he's like, humans are brave, but then he doesn't like the word, so he describes basically what crazy is, and so Rylan gives him the word crazy, and Rocky's basically like, yeah, humans are crazy for going outside of their spaceships. Like, what? Yeah.
And then that takes us to a flashback where we see Rylan training in an EVA suit.
Yes.
And he's in a pool, submerged in a pool at NASA to try to like simulate somewhat zero G or like less gravity to figure out how to like use things and tools, and he keeps dropping this
Yeah.
vial, and he's frustrated. And they're like, come out of the pool. And he comes out of the pool, and he's been told he has to go train Shapiro and Dubois.
Yeah, because they have to fix something. He's like, it's probably me. Like, I'm not using
Yeah.
it right. And they're like, no,
Mhm.
no, no, no. I watched the feedback and like, I actually do need to fix something. Like, you pressed this and it should have done X, but it did Y. So let me fix it. And so he has to go back to train.
And this is hilarious and so awkward.
So
And he
uncomfortable.
shows up to the classroom, and Dubois is there, and he's like, "Oh, where's Shapiro?" And he said she had to go to the bathroom. I just want to be upfront with you. We have started a sexual relationship. And he's like, "Why? Basically, why are you telling me this?" He's like, "I just thought I should be upfront. There shouldn't be any secrets in the core team." He's like, okay, sure." And she comes back, and he's like, "Oh, I told him." And she's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he starts trying to teach them, and
Yep.
she's like, "Wait a second. We have 15 minutes after this. Do you want to go basically have sex in the closet?" And Dubois is like, "I'm amenable to that."
Yep.
And he he starts trying to teach again, and he's like, "Wait a second. Do you call her Dr. DePiro?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's her name." And she goes, "I kind of like it." And he's
Oh
like,
my
"Never
God.
mind. Why did I ask?" And goes
What?
back to trying to teach. And it's just one of those like out of the blue, hilarious, awkward moments.
Yep.
And basically, the two of them are like, one of us is going to die.
Yep.
There's not much really at stake here. We're just trying to have as much fun as we can while we're here. Make
Yeah.
the best of a bad situation.
But so uncomfortable.
Yep.
So they finally arrive close enough to Adrian, and Rocky has been he is beyond smart. Okay,
Mhm.
like the creature is a genius. He's made this like camera thing so that he can like basically like hold it towards the screens in the control room so that he'll be able to see
Mhm.
the pictures and things that Rylan is seeing on his screens.
It captures the light and then makes a texture on
Mhm.
this other thing for him, so he can see, or he can hear
Yeah.
light. And I like, Rocky has said before that he is not a science Iridian. He is an
Mhm.
engineer
Yeah. He
Iridian.
fixes.
He fixes things. And so I feel like we see that more and more all the time with
Mhm.
what he does and how quickly he does it.
Yeah. And so I thought this was really neat too because like it's texturized. And so like Rylan was telling him like, yeah, like Adrian's green, like it's the color
Mhm.
green. He's like, I don't have a word for that. And so he was like, well, make a word for that. Like, what do you see? He was like, well, this is mid texture, like it's a middle
Mid
text,
rough, I think
mid
he
rough.
says. Mhm.
And so like he puts it into into their like catalog as that. And Rylan's like, well, that makes sense because like green's in the middle of the spectrum
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
So even though they don't see the same way, there is still that correlation.
Yeah.
So they successfully get the sample of astrophage from Adrian, and the way that they're capturing it, they're getting it coming and going.
Yeah, they get one side is facing Taucetti
Hmm.
and one side is facing
Adrian.
Adrian.
And they basically discovered that it's not breeding or doubling, which is very confusing because they would expect it to be doubling.
Yeah, they realize that the population density on both sides is equal.
Yeah.
And you would think the Taucetti side would be half of
Hmm.
the Adrian side, because they split, right? We learned that earlier. They split, and then they go back to Taucetti.
Hmm.
And so they're like, how is this possible?
Hmm.
And that's when Rocky
Yes.
hypothesizes that there's a predator
Yeah.
that is eating
Hmm.
the astrophage inside Adrian's atmosphere, and that's why the population isn't doubled.
Yeah.
And he hypothesizes that after Ryland looks in a
Yeah.
microscope. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. He looks in a microscope and sees life,
Hmm.
other life besides the
Yeah.
astrophage. And Rocky's like, life is the reason. Life is
Hmm.
the reason. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's why there's also methane
Methane.
in the.
Yeah.
And so Grace, um, wants to look further into that hypothesis. He thinks
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, so their new goal is to find whatever this predator is, so that we can bring it back to the planets. And Rocky's all excited. We take home and eat astrophage, breed, eat more astrophage, breed, eat more, more, more. Star saved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Rylan teaches Rocky the fist bump, and he's like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? And so he like mimics or whatever, and instead of saying fist bump, he goes celebration.
Yes.
And so like they're showing their joined excitement.
Mm-hmm. And then we go right into another
Mm-hmm.
flashback, and we're with the original crew.
Yes.
And they're watching the launch of the pieces of
Yes.
the Hail Mary up to the International Space Station.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the crew compartment, basically the pieces they'll be living
Yeah.
in are being sent up to the Hail Mary, or to the International Space Station, to be assembled with the rest,
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't launch it all at once. And it's during this that Grace is basically informed that everybody thinks that he's Strat's lieutenant, like he's her number two. And some of them think that they're in what the Shapiro Dubois relationship is.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What? No, I'm just
No.
a scientist." And they're like, "But you're always there and you're always doing things. And she's
Mm-hmm.
always asking you questions and she's always looking at you." And he's like, kind of making that realization.
Yeah.
um, and one other thing I thought was interesting from this flashback is that the astronauts celebrate once the pieces clear the tower,
Yeah.
and Ryland says something like, "Oh, don't celebrate just yet. Wait
Yeah.
till it like gets up there and gets assembled." And they're like, "No, we celebrate when you clear the tower,
Yeah.
because that is one of the biggest places where mishaps can
Yeah.
happen."
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't realize that slowly he's been there.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, with every flashback, obviously he has to be there for there to be a
Yes.
flashback. But like, why did he have to go to the prison?
Yeah.
Why did he have to go visit the climatologist?
Mm-hmm.
Why did he have to get tested or visit that with
Mm-hmm.
her? Like, he is just a middle school teacher. He
Yeah.
could have been in a lab studying astrophage, but he was with her for everything,
Everything. Yeah.
including the trial. Like, what was his purpose at being at the trial too?
Yeah. Yeah. So Rocky and Rylan come up with a really crazy scheme.
Well, first Ryland looks
Oh yeah.
in the sample and he's like, "I'm not finding a predator."
Yeah. Just a lot of life.
He gets so upset. "I'm not finding a predator. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we were wrong. We were wrong. There's no predator." And that's when Rocky is like, "Maybe there is a predator."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, where else would it be?"
Yeah. And so they talk about how there has to be like a part in the atmosphere that's best for breeding.
Like a breeding altitude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are able to use, I want to say it's the IR scanner, in the control area to like see different pockets. And there's different pockets in the atmosphere. It's not like one like sphere of it. It's different clouded areas that have better and areas. They just described it as
Mm-hmm.
clouds, like pockets of it versus
And
it being spread.
Ryland is kind of surprised by this. He
Yeah.
thought it would be more of a blanket, and
Mm-hmm.
it's more clumped. And Rocky hypothesizes too that it would be, they just went through the Petrova line to get
Yes.
this sample of astrophage. So he's like, it has to be lower than
Mm-hmm.
that, and they have to do a bunch of math to calculate what the breathing altitude is.
Yeah.
Which then comes the next problem,
Yeah.
because the altitude is lower than where they
Mm-hmm.
can safely be in orbit.
Yep.
And so they can't physically go through it
Mm-mm.
without potentially endangering themselves and the ship and maybe getting sucked in by Adrian.
Yeah.
And so,
And
how are we going to get this sample?
yeah, well, and there was also at one point too, there was also the possibility of like the fuel igniting the the Hail Mary or even the atmosphere. And so
Mm-hmm.
like they also couldn't go in because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rocky came up with this really crazy but
Yeah.
ingenious fishing experiment.
Pretty much.
They are working and going to make this really long chain. Ryland's going to make the chain, and Rocky is making a xenonite contraption, like a collector, for their experiment. And they
Mm-hmm.
will get at a certain altitude within a safe zone, but they can't be at an angle because then the fuel will, or the exhaust will hit the chain and it'll burn that up.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to be at this weird angle. It's this whole thing. Um,
Yes.
it's quite scary to think about.
And the frustrating part for them is that they're about 10 kilometers too high.
Yeah.
So they have to make this 10-kilometer chain and
Mm-hmm.
dangle the sampler down into the right atmosphere, the
Yes.
very, very specific angle. And the thing is, again, they don't have a way to collect it unless he goes out of
Out.
the ship. He has to do an EVA and use this winch
Yep.
that Rocky makes to then pull the thing back up.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the plan.
Yes. And to do this EVA, though, because the
Mm-hmm.
thrusters will be going, he'll be experiencing gravity while in the EVA
Mm-hmm.
suit, which is not the purpose of the EVA suit.
Exactly. So just so you understand how crazy this plan is. And during this, they're making the chain, and he says this takes forever and hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're talking about other things. And Grace realizes that Iridians don't know about relativistic physics and
Mm-hmm.
time dilation. And because he's like, Rocky is explaining his experience with getting to Tau Ceti. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, we reached the halfway point way too early. And I got confused and I turned the ship around and tried to reverse the thrust and all this stuff. And that's when Grace realizes he doesn't know about
Mm-hmm.
relativity. And he asks if the same amount of if the time is the same on their ship as it is on their planet. And he's like, time is same everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he really doesn't know. And so they kind of discuss that a little bit while making the chain. We don't really get the details of that at
Mm-hmm.
this point, but like that is why he has this extra fuel,
Mm-hmm.
because they calculated for what they thought they would experience.
Yeah.
And so that's why he has so much extra fuel that he can give Grace.
Yeah. It also leads into a flashback where we find out about the creation of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Steve
Mm-hmm.
Hatch is the creator of the Beatles that are on the Hail Mary. They're the little, like, self-contained ships, little robot ships that will be sent back with the information from the Hail Mary. They can self-navigate to Earth. They're also powered by astrophage, and this is kind of helps explain that they will travel faster. These little Beatles will than the Hail Mary did because there's no humans on board, and so they can withstand more G's of force, so they can get there quicker. And Hatch is the one that's the Beatles fan, the music group.
He is a character.
Yes, he
Like if
is.
you're listening to the audiobook, his voice is very
Mm-hmm.
distinct. He talks fast, he's
Yep.
constantly moving, and he is the utmost optimist.
Yes, he is.
Grace tries to like poke holes at him and like
Mm-hmm.
try to make him more what Grace would feel is
Yeah.
realistic and a little bit pessimistic, and he's not having it.
Mm-mm.
He is very much like very optimistic, and he has the prototype and he
Yeah.
names it Pete.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Why is that one Pete?" And he's like, "Oh, that was the drummer before Ringo."
Yeah.
And like, I liked that little touch.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious, and I just think the personality that he was
Mm-hmm.
given was so cool. Like
Yeah.
it made him unique and stick
Yeah.
out to me.
It really did. Yeah, so we see that, we understand, the Beatles, it gives a little bit of this relativity in time understanding to us. And then we see Rylan and Rocky getting that astrophage and hopefully finding that predator from the atmosphere on Adrian with their little fishing experiment.
And Rocky, in preparation for this,
Yes.
makes a life support system for the Adrian life once they get the
Yes.
sample. So he pre-makes like a little container that they
Hmm.
can put the Adrian life in to make sure that it doesn't die.
Yes.
Because this is already risky.
Hmm.
And they don't know if it would be able to survive in either of their
Yes.
atmospheres,
Yes.
and they want to make sure that they can do the experiments they need. So
Yeah.
like again, I am so amazed by
Mhm.
Rocky. He like how ingenious he is and how he can do this in such short
Yeah.
periods of time and make sure that it works.
Mhm.
And Rylan looks at it and is like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. So Rylan has made 20 spools of this chain. Rocky is in charge of kind of like the process here. And he's like, spool one away, spool two. Now we're at 12 and 15 and blah, blah, blah. And so it gets to its full extension. He gets the, kind of like the green light. Okay. Yeah. Sample has been collected. And Ryland's like, all right, here we go. And he leaves the control room, suits up in the EVA, treks out to there,
Mhm.
and then Rocky has made this whole new collection device, like retrieval thing,
Mhm.
where Ryland's out there, and it's like it's got different speeds. And so once
Mhm.
he gets to like a certain distance of the chain, he can like speed
Mhm.
it up because they also don't want to risk the chain breaking at any point and then them losing
Mhm.
their collection and then having to do this all over again. So we see Ryland out there on the ship, slowly getting it. He's, remember, in full gravity because the ship is also at thrust. And he gets the container, and then all hell breaks loose.
Well, right before he goes out, he
Oh yeah,
problems start almost
that's
immediately.
true.
And he doesn't really think it's a problem yet.
No.
He's like, like it's hot.
Yeah.
And the Hail Mary is introducing a ton of heat into Adrian's atmosphere,
Mm.
which is cooking the ship
Yep.
a little bit. But he doesn't think it's really a problem because there's astrophage through the hull, and so that should absorb the heat and
Mhm.
it shouldn't be a big issue. So then he's outside, he's got the thing hooked to him,
Yep.
and the hull leeches or
Mhm.
lurches. The ship lurches. And he's like, oh God, what was that? And Rocky's like, I don't know. Hurry, hurry,
Yeah.
hurry. Get inside. And so he like hurries up and
Mhm.
gets back inside. And the
He
ship is tipping down.
Yeah. He leaves the container in the airlock.
Yes, he leaves the container in the airlock and then he goes to try to figure out what's going on.
Yes.
And um he fixes the problem. Like he fixes the angle and he
Mhm.
thinks he's back in safe orbit.
Yes.
But then he realizes his head drops back onto the headrest and he's like, that's gravity. Like
Uh-huh.
that shouldn't be happening. And he like lifts an arm and
Yep.
drops it and he realizes, like, he starts going through some of the screens and that part of the fuel
Mhm.
tanks melted.
Melted.
And so now they're in trouble
Yeah.
because those fuel tanks still had fuel in them.
Yep.
And now the astrophage see Adrian
Yep.
and they're going to breed. And so they are in
Causing
big trouble.
Yep, they're causing acceleration like crazy. Which is why he's feeling the gravity still, and the gravity is increasing because he keeps lifting his arm and it falls at a
Quicker.
faster rate. Even
Mhm.
Rocky starts doing it and
Mhm.
like attempting it, and like Rocky is making the same correlations. And so we see as gravity is getting heavier and heavier, he's ejecting the fuel bays that were melted and affected.
Mhm.
But when he did that, the force of those then
Caused a spin.
of the ship. So
Mhm.
now Rylan is also doing this, and he's getting crushed by his chair.
To
Um,
the control screen. So the chair has come up. He is pinned
mhm.
basically at 6 Gs.
Yep.
So his vision is starting to go. And he's like, basically, oh, this is how I die.
Yep. Sorry, Earth. This is how I die. Um, and then he realizes he's like, oh wait, I'm crying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm crying. It smells weird in here. What's happening? Oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
it's hot. Well,
Rocky's too good of a guy. Like you
yeah.
can tell from his personality and you can tell like Rocky is just so excited and so happy and relieved that he's not alone anymore and
Hmm.
he is not going to let Grace die
Yeah.
and he has come out of his airlock into Grace's environment and has slashed the straps
Mhm.
that are holding him in and pulled the chair off of him, and so that he can breathe
Mhm.
and things right
Yeah.
themselves. Um, but Rocky is curled up on the floor and basically tells him to save the planets.
Yeah.
And he, Ryland is obviously very upset about this. I was very upset about
Yeah.
this. He's like, "Oh no, Rocky, what did you do?" And Rocky is just basically curled up and still.
Yeah.
And that's where the chapter ends, and that's where our section ends. And
Mhm.
so I'm crying.
Yes.
Is Rocky dead? Did he just sacrifice himself to save Ryland? And also, if he is dead, what does that mean for Aaron
Right?
and his whole race? You know, I'm saying there's a significant portion
Of the book.
left of this book,
Mhm.
so I'm hopeful that he is not dead.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just a super emotional
It
moment.
is.
Um,
Especially because 'cause we've seen them truly form this, like,
yes.
friendship, this bond, like,
Mhm.
they're both the last surviving people of their ships. They're out in the space all by themselves. They found this connection, they've got this common purpose, like
Mhm. Well, and Rocky knows too, I think part of maybe his reasoning is Rocky knows he can't figure it out alone
Yeah.
because he's not what he would call a science Iridian.
Mhm.
And so Grace is the best hope for
Mhm.
figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is a science fiction novel, but it's
Yeah.
also like an odd couple
Mhm.
book. And you just get so attached
Yeah.
to them and their interactions, and especially in this section has been mostly about them building this bond
Yeah.
and really working. You feel like they're making good progress towards a solution,
Mhm.
but I feel like a lot of it is just them building a friendship and
Yeah.
really getting to see Rocky's personality come out
Mhm.
and how funny he is and how like endearing he is. And I like, this just can't be it for me.
No, no. And well, and you know my theory, and it's true 99.9% of the time,
Mhm.
unless I actually am told physically on the page that a character has died, they're not dead yet.
And
I'm
you
not
see
writing
the
them off,
body.
and I have to see the body, and I can't write them off yet.
Mhm. There's just too much book for me.
Yeah.
That is what I'm banking on, is that there is too much book
Hmm.
for him to be dead.
Yeah.
Now, how is that gonna work? Who knows?
Who knows?
We'll find out next time.
Yes, we will.
But it has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So follow us for the conclusion when we get back for our final episode about the book, where we will cover chapters 20 through the end, which is like 30.
Mhm.
And if you're so inclined, we will be doing a bonus episode where we discuss movie and book correlations for Project Hail Mary as well.
We'll see you then.